Hello everyone, we hope you're all doing well. Welcome to one more video as part of your Insta Ethics initiative presented to you by Insights IAS team. In today's video, we will be focusing on a very simple topic that you might think it is very simple. The topic is ethics in public and private relationship. In this video, I will be using public relationship and private relationship in a synonymous manner with public and private life. Just keep that in mind when I will be doing the discussion. Even though I know relationship and life has two different literal meanings, but in this context of our discussion, both public and private relationship is as similar as public and private life. Now, when you read this topic, yes, it appears quite simple in nature. Now, I want to ask one question. I want you to ask yourself one question. Why exactly is this topic being prescribed to you by UPSC board? Is there any specific reason as such? Whatever syllabus topic you have as part of your GS or your optional paper, there are reasons. Once you understand this reason, it becomes a lot more easier for you to appreciate the topic and also have that framework in mind to look at what is happening around us from the perspective of these syllabus topics. I'll just give you a few examples. In our public life, okay, or even in our private life. Let me start with our private life. When you look at what is happening in the recent scenarios, there has been an increase in the cases of extramarital affairs. This is nothing but a manifestation of erosion or decrease of unethical values in our present times. As a common citizen, you're expected to follow certain rules and regulations. These could be as simple as following the traffic signals, traffic rules and provisions. But what happens? You would have experienced this in your life no matter where you're staying. People don't usually follow that. You might have also heard that India is a country where people don't follow rules and regulations. But these people, the moment they go to some other country, they start following those rules and regulations. What exactly is it that makes these Indians ethical there, follow rules and regulations there, but not in India? You know the reasons. Fear, right? There is absolutely no fear or even respect for certain things. Now, since last 2.5 years, we are living in the situation of COVID-19. Government has come up with various protocols to make sure that we are as safe as possible. It could be as simple as wearing a mask. It could be as simple as getting vaccinated. But all of you know that many people did not want to wear mask, did not want to follow these distancing protocols. You have experienced that in your common life as well. Now, when we talk about ethics in public life, on a frequent basis, you would come across people who are working in government institutions, no matter where in the country, no matter for central or state government. They would have amassed wealth disproportionate to their income. You would have come across people at a very low level of bureaucracy making tens and tens of crores, something which even IAS officers can't do. That is nothing but a manifestation of decrease or growing disregard for ethics. Now, when there is growing disregard for ethics in public and private relationship, you will not be happy as such in your private life. There will be no quality of life for you. Oftentimes, you read about in your newspapers that gross national happiness index. We have something like this. India is not performing very well in this index. India's gross national happiness rank is even lesser than Pakistan. This is also something that have been mentioned in many newspapers. When you have a system in place where people are ethical in nature, both in their private and public capacity, that is when that added happiness comes in your life. When you don't have that, when you just have all these mechanisms, governance mechanisms, everything, but there is no ethicality in it, then you start to suffer. That is one of the reasons why India has performed bad. When you look at countries Scandinavian countries such as Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, all these countries perform well in most of the indices that are released on a global scale. They perform better on gross national happiness also. Because in these countries, there is a wider acceptance, wider practice of ethics in both public and private life. This is the important reason why they have given you that. When you have ethicality, that framework in your mind, you will be able to realize that happiness. You will be able to bring out that inclusive growth as an administrator when you follow this ethics. Whatever you read, whatever you observe in and around you, whatever you read as part of your UPSC syllabus, be it GS 1, 2, 3, you should be able to link each and every topic to these syllabus headings. That is important. If you get this idea, if you get this framework, 70% of your work is done. Scoring more than 100 plus becomes a lot more easier. If you practice consistent writing, you will be able to score 140 also. This trend is reducing in recent times because people are losing out on their originality, but nevertheless, I'll teach you how to bring your own unique thoughts and processes as we move along. Now, let us start. Now that we have understood the importance of it, let us start by discussing these two terms, public life and private life. All of you know this, but just for the sake of clarity, let me give you that definition. What is public life? It is those aspects of social life. Man is a social animal. From his birth till his death, he will be interacting with people in his private capacity and in his public capacity as well. Public life, it is those aspects of social life which are happening in public, in the open, as opposed to more private social interaction within families, private clubs, etc. When we talk about family, it happens within closed doors. Alright? But in public life, it is not like that. The decisions that you take appeals, or it has a wider range compared to the decisions that you take within your private sphere. Alright? What is private life? Private life, it is a person's personal relationships. Father and his relationship with his kids. Alright? Mother and her relationship with kids. A son's relationship, okay, with his extended family as well. That is also part and parcel of personal relationship. A private life concerns with a person's personal relationship, interest and activities as distinct from their public and or professional life. In our private life, we do have a sense of liking for our own family members. But if this sense of liking comes into conflict with your responsibilities as a public officer, then such thing, alright, might result in nepotism if you don't manage it well. You should never have a liking for your own family members which shall compromise your duties in your public life. If you don't do that, it leads to nepotism. You know what nepotism is? Giving more emphasis to your own family members, giving more emphasis to your favorites compared to others as part of your public life. Now that we have understood what is the importance of the syllabus topic as such, we have understood the basic meaning of those two terms, public and private life. Let us understand what is the importance of having ethics in public and private life. I've already spoken about it, but nevertheless, right? I will be just identifying a few. There are quite many apart from this. I want you to do one thing for me. What other things or factors do you think is important for having ethics in public and private life? Just let us know about it in the comment section. Okay? What is the importance of having ethics in public and private life apart from this? And whenever you're commenting, please give an example for that as well. Right. Coming back, happiness. When you have that ethical mindset in your public and private life, you will be happy. Why will you be happy when you have ethicality? What example can I talk about? When you're unethical, your conscience always creates challenges for you. You will have that guilty mindset. But when you have that ethical framework where you are conducting your behavior, where your actions are in consonance or in similarity with the values enshrined in the Constitution, or the values that are encouraged in the society, then you will have a lot more happiness with the work that you're doing. Is it not? There's so many people like that. For Mahatma Gandhi ji, happiness was in the service of others. Same is the case for Mother Teresa. So many examples. What is the ultimate goal of life? I know, to become IAS and IPS officers. But when you become these officers, if you're not able to work the way you have to work, you will not still be happy with your life. So the ultimate goal in life is to be happy. And this happiness should be achieved in a proper ethical format. If it does not, you will always be this guilty consciousness and you will not be ever happy in life. Moving on, then we have trust. When you have strong ethical principles, when you show integrity, when you show courage, when there is probity in your life, don't worry about all these values. I will explain them as and when we take up other chapters. When you have such strong ethical principles, people will trust you. And when people trust you, you build relationship in your public as well as private life. When you are going through a tough time, you might have witnessed how your friends help you. They would have helped you to overcome difficult and tough phases in life because they believe in you, because they know what you're doing is right. When you don't have that trust, the example that I gave was from a common life experience. As an officer, when you don't command that trust in your life because you're unethical in nature, because you're dishonest in nature, people will not follow you. A politician might come and tell that you need to wear mask and everything, you need to respect the rule of law. But if that same politician is not doing the same thing, is not paying their taxes, is not even making sure that their own family members are following the rule of law, how will a common man do it? There is this phrase in Sanskrit, Yata Raja Tata Praja. If the king is ethical, the subjects will be ethical as well. But if the king is not ethical, the subjects will tend to follow that only. Right? If you are an officer, if you want people to work with you for the overall welfare of the country, you need to command that trust. Right? Moving on. Inclusive growth. When you pay your taxes in the right moment, without evading taxes in any illegal manner. If you want to reduce your tax burden through legal means, that is fine. But if you're looking for illegal ways of evading taxes, then that is wrong. That is morally wrong. It is illegal in terms of rules also, but it is morally wrong as well. So what happens? These taxes are the important resources for the overall growth of the country. There can't be any growth as such. When you showcase important values such as care, compassion, sympathy, and empathy, you will be talking about what is happening in the society. If you feel that a government is not doing enough, you might not vote for the government, you might request the government to do more. If you feel that you have an idea, and if you have that courage to share that idea, to approach the administrator, to hold them accountable, that would be a lot more better contribution of your productive capacity in ensuring the growth of the country. Is it not? When you are an officer, you will be dealing with hundreds and hundreds of crores. You will be dealing with so many people. But when you have shaky ethical principles, when you give emphasis to just the few or your own self, then that is where corruption rises. When corruption occurs, you all know, the question of inclusive growth will be ever elusive. What is ever elusive? Something which we cannot achieve. All right? That is one more thing. Stability. you take up your life in public or in private sphere, you need that stability. You need that assurance. When you don't have that stability, your mind starts to wander off. And when will you not have this stability? When you have that unethical nature. Whenever you're doing something wrong, your conscience will prick you. It will create fear in you. So long you have this fear, you will never be happy in your personal life or in your professional life as well. When I started, I gave you one example of how we are seeing erosion of ethics in our private life, extramarital affair. When you have such unethical values, your relationship within the family will be affected. The kids might not respect the parents. The socialization of the kids might not happen. When kids grow up in such kind of environments, their physical health will be affected, their mental health will also be affected. Right? These are just some of the importance associated with ethics in both public and private life. Whatever examples I've taken, whatever dimensions I've spoken, I've given examples for both in private as well as public life. I want you to give me some more importance, okay? And also examples for this in your comment section. Please don't forget that. Moving on. This slide, it contains sustainable development goals which we are expected to achieve in the next few years. This is an UN mandated goals. It has 17 goals and 160 plus targets. We won't get into that, but take up anything, be it elimination of poverty, elimination of hunger, good health, well-being, quality education, take up any 17 goals. You can't achieve all these 17 goals just on the back of laws or policies. The people who are implementing them, the people who are supposed to hold the people implementing them accountable, all of them should be ethical in nature. As a company, you should be focusing or trying to find a balance between the economic interest of the company as well as your responsibility, social responsibility towards the society. You should not make your drugs and your medicines very costly so that it is accessible or affordable to only a few, right? So all these goals, please do remember it and try to connect with your answers wherever it is required. Don't forget that. Moving on, ethical framework. I've told you, yes, it is important to have ethics. If you don't have ethics, so many other things happen. There is erosion of values. Inclusive growth will not happen. There will be no stability. Since the start of life, various people over the years in India and across the world have given what should be the framework, ethical framework that we need to follow both in our private life as well as our public life. I'll just talk about a few. What is the ethical framework in public life? Chanakya, all right, the famous scholar who lived during the times of Chandragupta Maurya, what he has said, the king must restrain his passions, including, which are these passions that he's talking about? Lust, anger, greed, attachment. A king should avoid these things in his capacities. Not just this, there's one more very interesting aspect with our Indian society called as Pancha Tantra. What is this Pancha Tantra? It is a collection of stories where you find animals teaching you the morality of life. There is a belief that Pancha Tantra as an idea was initiated by Vishnu Sharma, basically as a guiding framework for the kings and rulers of the country. There is one more very important work called as Tuti Nama. This was done during the times of Akbar. And even over here, you find stories and illustrations of in Tuti Nama where they talk about being ethical in private life as well. Okay? Right. So there are many frameworks. That is what I wanted to showcase. Some examples related to that. Apart from this, if you take up any famous ruler, not just in India, across the world, When I say famous, this ruler should not be famous just for acquiring a lot many territories. Both Alexander and Ashoka are called as great. Ashoka the Great, Alexander the Great. But Alexander the Great, he is called Alexander the Great because he acquired a lot many territories. But we call Ashoka the Great not because of his territorial expansion, but because of his policies, his Dhamma policies, which spoke about tolerance for people across all religion, which spoke about compassion for animals, which spoke about compassion for the slaves at that particular point in time. That is why we call Ashoka as great. And Alexander, why he is called as great, I've already told you. Coming back, any famous ruler in India or elsewhere ensured that they set up an ethical framework for their rule to be carried out. Example, Ashoka, I've already told you. Akbar, Abraham Lincoln. All of you know Abraham Lincoln. He was one of the very famous president of United States of America. Your UPSC board loves Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln is associated with the abolition of slavery in USA. When he wanted to abolish slavery, many people in his own country did not want. It led to a civil war. Lincoln could have forgotten about abolishing the slavery and he could have continued his work. He could have continued to enjoy his power. He could have had good relationship with others, but nevertheless, he stuck up for what was right. Many members in his own cabinet were against the idea of abolishing slavery, but he showed courage even in that. For him, power was not important. For him, what was important was the long-term happiness in the society, long-term stability in the society, doing morally that action which is right in nature. They wanted to create such framework, not just in their administration, but future administrations as well. Okay, moving on. Apart from that, ethical framework for an administrator in India, how is it showcased? You have your constitution, in your preamble, in your fundamental rights, in your DPSP, there's so many values. Equality, liberty, fraternity, justice, and it's not just justice from a political perspective. It is social as well as economic. Okay? Then you have your Supreme Court judgments. Supreme Court judgments, it's not just related to legal aspect of it. It sometimes has that ethical aspect of it as well. Whenever there was a court case where a person went to the court and the officer had not taken an action because he was following the rule of law in a very strict manner, the court said that the officers should follow rule of law, but at the same time should ensure that it is followed in a way that basic human principles are upheld. Not just Supreme Court, even our Prime Ministers at various points in time has given this advice to the officers. Yes, follow rule of law, but follow rule of law in a humanistic perspective. Okay, right. Along with that, we have various policies and programs. Recently, we have introduced Mission Karma Yogi. All of you know about Citizens Charter. All of you know about Code of Conduct, right? All these things, they provide a framework for people, for officers in their public life. Along with that, you have ARC recommendations, Administrative Reform Commission, first and second. We will be looking at some of these recommendations at a later point in time. Apart from this, there is this one very famous person called as Lord Nolan. This is not Christopher Nolan, the director of films such as Interstellar and Inception, but it is different. Lord Nolan, he is from United Kingdom. The committee which was set up, which had Lord Nolan as the chairman, has given certain important qualities that an officer should have in his public life, that should guide him in his public life. What are these important qualities? Selflessness. You should do the work without expecting any results. You should not do a work so that you will have that career progression. Do it in a very selfless manner. This is something that was told by Krishna in his Bhagavad Gita as well. Selfless service. Alright? Apart from that, integrity. What is integrity? Sticking to ethical principles, being moral in nature. That is integrity. Then you have objectivity. An officer, when he or she is taking a decision, it should not just be pure emotional. An officer should have the capability of thinking from multiple angles, analyzing various options, and taking that option which is most rational and most ethical as well. That is objectivity. Along with that, accountability. When you're working in public domain, your acts, you should make sure that whatever action that you take, you're accountable for those actions. You have to create mechanisms for that. So when I talk about this, what is the biggest measure that we have taken to ensure accountability in recent times? It is right to information. All right. We have introduced concepts such as social audit as well. All these measures are related to accountability. What is the greatest measure of accountability that we have in any democracy? And that is what? Elections. But when you look at our country, there are many instances where people don't vote. When you're not voting, you're missing out on your basic fundamental duty as a citizen, right? You're missing out on holding your government accountable, your leaders accountable, okay? Please do vote, right? Other than that, you need to be showcasing openness. As a person, as an officer, you should not show that VIP culture. You should shed such things, and you need to be open to the ideas of people all around you. All right, that is one more thing. Honesty and leadership. What is honesty? Being truthful all the time. When you're truthful, people around you will trust you. It might create certain challenges, but nevertheless, when you are truthful, when you show that honesty, in the long term, people will stick with you. Why do we admire Mahatma Gandhi ji, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Nelson Mandela? Why do we admire them? Because the amount of emphasis that they gave for honesty in their, not just in their public life, but also in their private life. That is the reason why we admire them, is it not? An officer should showcase this honesty. Along with that, leadership. Any officer, they should make sure, not just in terms of public organization, but also in private organizations, they need to create a setup or a mechanism where they are providing a platform for future generations to showcase their capabilities. You should teach them how to lead. You should teach them how to bring much more productiveness in the organization's goal and growth in the future years, and that too in a ethical manner. There is a saying, you should lead but not boss people around. When you're bossing people around, you're just basically giving instructions. But when you're leading by an example. Gandhiji asked us to be truthful, to be non-violent. And this is something that he did not just preach, he practiced it in his life. As a leader, if you're asking someone to be honest, as a leader, if you're asking someone to not use the cars, government cars, for their personal users, you should lead by an example. Don't you agree? Right? That is what this Nolan committee also spoke about. A person should be a leader and not a boss. Along with that, okay, we have multilateral organizations, global organizations such as OECD. Even these organizations have highlighted certain important aspects to have an ethical framework in a public life or in a public organization. What are these things? There should be political commitment for ethical governance. You all know what happened with Lokpal. We took many years to implement it. That is what political commitment means. In terms of Right to Information Act, we have introduced certain provisions which have been criticized, right? I won't get into that fact, but there needs to be a broad political commitment to set up an ethical governance framework. Along with that, creation of effective legal framework. The courts that we have should have enough infrastructure. The tribunals should be having those judges which are unbiased in their nature, right? All those things. Evolving and efficient accountability. I've already spoken about it. Need for evolving workable codes of conduct. We have something like that. But many public officers, they themselves don't have an idea about it. The code of conduct that we have should not be just words on the paper, it should be showcased in our actions as well. How to make it workable? Recognize those people who showcase this. Celebrate their work, right? Provide them rewards. That is how you make those codes of conduct workable. Along with that, you have professional socialization mechanism, consistent training. It's not like that you clear exam once and till the end of your service, there's no training. You should be constantly training. You should be trying to have interactions at people working with you at all levels, not working for you, working with you at all levels. You will be hearing a lot many ideas when you deal with people who are constantly working at the ground level, right? Along with that, creation of supportive public service conditions. What is this public service conditions? Basically, when your income is low and this income is not at par with what is happening in the country in terms of inflation, if you're not able to meet your basic needs of yourself and your family, there will be that push for you to be corrupt. You can't judge a person in that scenario. What did we discuss? Ethics in human actions. When a person is pressurized to take up and work, if he's taking any decision under pressure, that action you can't judge. So when we are saying that we need to create supportive public service, it could be in terms of income. It could be of ensuring that even in public service, there is that measure of equality which is there. What is this equality? All of you have watched this film called as Article 15. When we are working as part of a public organizations, the race, religion, caste, nothing matters. Gender does not matter. It should not matter. But unfortunately, in public organizations, such things crop up. It doesn't set the right service condition for all of them to work together as a team, right? We need to prevent all these things. Apart from that, need for a central ethics coordinating body, much like a regulator, okay? Need for an energetic civil society, you people, all the NGOs that we have, the pressure groups that we have, they need to act as an accountable mechanism to ensure that the public organization, the government, the bureaucracy are all working with an ethical framework in their mind. Okay, that is the thing. So these are just some of the frameworks that you have. In here, the important one is Nolan, and please focus on OECD as well. Keep these dimensions in mind, and whenever they're asking you any case study question, you can use these dimensions, you can use these values, all right, to justify your action. I'll teach you that how in the later classes, so don't worry, right? So this is just some framework in terms of public life. Let me just talk about ethical framework in private life. When I say ethical framework in private life, almost all religions, they tend to give instructions to you how you need to behave, what is your duty and responsibility as a member of that family. When we talk about Islam religion, when we talk about Christianity, they talk about charity. I already spoke about how Krishna, when he was delivering his sermons, which we read as Bhagavad Gita, he talks about selfless service as well, right? Almost all religions on this planet teach their followers how to be ethical in their private sphere. When we talk about Basavanna said Atma Shuddhi. What is this Atma Shuddhi? Basavanna did not want people to go to temples and worship idols in a very passive manner. Basavanna wanted you to see your God in the soul, and how to take care of that God? Be pure at your soul. That is what Basavanna asked for. See God in the work that you do. Work is worship, right? So this is one thing. Along with that, there are various factors which mold ethics in private relationship. I've just given you religion, which is one factor. Apart from that, your family will teach you that sharing is important. Your family will teach you how you need to go about in life trying to manage competition. All of you have, some of you might have watched 3 Idiots film where they say, Rishwat dena to papa ne kuch sikhaya, right? You should not have such kind of a perception, but at times in family, that is encouraged, right? That is one thing. Then you have education, your schools. I remember till 10th standard in my schooling years, we had a subject such as moral science, which was basically, all right, set up to inculcate in us the values or the importance of morality. We learn a lot more things about ethics and morals when we are in our schooling years, when we participate in all these sports competition. It builds that experiences. When you experience something in your life, a life-changing experience, it changes the way you look at life. I do encourage you to read a book, an autobiography, all right, of Mahatma Gandhi ji. That is My Experiments with Truth. There are so many experiences of Mahatma Gandhi ji that he himself has spoken about. Once he did a wrong thing, and because of that wrong thing, his father did not beat him, but he saw Mahatma Gandhi ji saw in his father tears rolling down from his eyes. That created a very big impact on Mahatma Gandhi ji. He never lied ever again, right? That is the thing. Then constitution. You might ask, sir, constitution is in public domain. Whatever happens in public, whatever rules, regulations, or our constitution comes up with, the provisions in the constitution, as and when you gain that knowledge, as and when these provisions are applied by the Supreme Court or other high courts, it creates a change in your life. That change, hopefully, would be towards establishing more ethical framework. What example can I give for this? What example can I give? I can talk about how when we were growing up, alternative lifestyle was something that was not considered as moral by the generation at that point in time. But as and when you see the time changing, as and when even the Supreme Court has accepted that alternative lifestyle is part and parcel of Article 21, it does make you change your framework in your private life as well. There is some acceptance over this. Some of the ethical principles or values that we can follow in our private life, which will ensure growth and happiness for us, would be caring and having affection for people in our private sphere, not just with our family members, but with all other members of the society that we engage with. Loyalty, all right? Confidentiality. When people can come and open up to you, you should have that ability to listen to them, not to judge them. Listen to them. And only when they ask your advice, you can give them. And making sure what they share with you, you don't share it with others. It builds trust. This can be very important when you're dealing with your family members who might have anxiety, depression. Many people don't want to open about it because they don't trust people. But when you showcase that confidentiality aspect in your life, they will trust you more. They can talk about their mental health issues, and it does help in overcoming whatever challenges that they're facing in life. Along with that, being truthful, yes, responsibility and accountability, self-explanatory, tolerance and acceptance of minor imperfections. This is very important, right? In family, this is where we learn the aspect of judging. Look at Sharma ji ka beta. We have to prevent this. No one is born perfect. We need to accept people for their perfections and also for their imperfections. We should teach them how to overcome this imperfection without being overly harsh on them. We have to teach them how to overcome this imperfection through love, care, and compassion, not through strict rules and discipline. All right? Moving on. What is the relationship between ethics in private and public relationship? There is no one particular universal theory that establishes it is directly proportional or inversely proportional. As a person, if you want to be happy in life, you have to be ethical in both. Being ethical in both is a source of happiness, not just for you, but also for the country. But in reality, you will find that there are many people who are unethical both in their public as well as private life. And there are instances where one could be ethical in one while being unethical in the other. Right? Many officers in their public life are unethical. But when we come to their family life, they showcase that value principles. Even though they are corrupt in their public life, they don't want their children to be like that. Okay, that is one thing. But there are other leaders, whatever leaders that we have spoken about till now, Mahatma Gandhi ji, Abraham Lincoln, Warren Buffett, all these people, they have showcased that ethical nature both in their public as well as private life. All right, moving on. One might be ethical in one and unethical in the other. I told you. What are the factors or reasons for this? It could be fear, it could be love, lack of monitoring mechanism, social media, peer pressure, identity protection. Okay, what is the fear? In family, one might fear that if they do something wrong, there might be a stigma associated with that. Okay, that will prevent them. But the same fear might not be there in terms of them following the rules and regulations of the government. Love, having love towards your family members is good. But if this love is coming against your professional responsibility, then that is bad. That is what we call as nepotism. Lack of monitoring mechanisms, this is something that you see in your private and public life as well. In private life, there is a rise in nuclear families. Parents are not being able to monitor their kids' activities properly or adequately. We don't have proper monitoring mechanisms in our public life as well. That is one of the reasons why we have so high corruption in India, right? For each and everything, you can give such example, right? Moving on, I've just given some examples or ranks, okay? I've just taken screenshot of various articles which showcase the erosion of ethics in both private and public life. Okay, India ranks 85 among 180 countries on Global Corruption Index. Muslim man brutally thrashed on suspicion of spreading coronavirus. Just a suspicion, right? Why India is so unhappy? I told you about gross national happiness, right? So whenever you're reading newspapers, there are many articles which are directly linked to various aspects of your UPSC syllabus. Please follow that. What are the possible solutions? You can come up with n number of solutions. I've just focused on few. Socialization process, the way a person grows up in a society, that needs to be more sensitive these days. Sensitive in the nature, you should teach by leading, not just by mere practicing. You should enforce your instructions in a loving, caring manner, right? That is one thing. The idea of education needs to become more holistic. As of now, education is seen just from a materialistic perspective. Get a degree, you will get a good job, you will get a good credit card, get married, all those things. It's just that. Yes, there is a mention of morality, but it is just from a very mere superficial level. That needs to change. And this is something that we are trying to change through NEP 2020. All right? The present narrow perception towards duty of an administrator needs to change. When we had Britishers, they had only one duty. And what was their duty? To perpetuate the rule of the Britishers. But as and when we moved from British rule to independent rule, the duty of an administrator became a lot more wide. It became welfare oriented. But many people have forgotten this. Many administrators work keeping in mind rule of law. This in itself is not going to be enough. You need to preach, you need to practice, you need to lead by example by ensuring this welfare approach. Then you have leaders should lead by example. I've already spoken about it. Civil society organization needs to be roped in for creating awareness. Now, if you look at most of these solutions, I've just picked out what is there in the OECD, all right, what was given by Nolan as well. Okay, policies to celebrate and recognize. I've already spoken about it, right? These are just some solutions. You can add a lot more to it. But even when you're adding, just be a bit objective in nature. Okay, right. There is this one quote of Gandhi ji that I want to talk. If you follow whatever Gandhi ji has told about in this quote, you will not be just ensuring ethics in your public life, but in your private life as well. Gandhi ji identified 7 sins. If you avoid these 7 sins, you will have a very happy life. What are the 7 sins that Gandhi ji identified? Politics without principle, wealth without work, pleasure without conscience, knowledge without character, commerce without morality, science without humanity, and worship without sacrifice. Avoid these 7 social sins and you will have a proper ethical framework in your private life and also in your public life. Okay, right. Now, let me just give you the framework for whatever question I asked in the last topic. What do you understand by values and ethics? In what way is it important to be ethical along with being professionally competent? You can start your introduction by giving a precise and clear definition of what ethics and value means. Not a big thing, right? We've already spoken about it. Body. Why is it necessary? It creates confidence, engages the team in a proper way. One can deal with an ethical dilemma in a proper way. Efficient and effective use of scarce resources can manage emerging challenges in a better manner. Innovative solutions. Now, over here, whatever I have given is just arguments. I have not given examples. Hopefully, in your answer, you have given examples. But if you have not given examples, I want you to. What is one example that I can give? Here, I have written, one can deal with an ethical dilemma in a proper way. Now, there is an action that you need to take. There are multiple options for you. And each of the options requires some amount of professional knowledge. When you don't have that professional competency, you will not be knowing which one will be more effective and efficient. That is the reason why you need to be both ethical as well as professionally competent, or else you will not be able to do your duty in a proper manner. You take up any famous administrators in India. It could be E. Sridharan, it could be IPS officer Rupa, Ashok Khemka. They are noted not just for their ethical honesty or courage, but also for their work. We need people like that. So, for all these dimensions that I've mentioned, please give adequate examples, just like how I did in the present scenario. Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Moving on. Conclusion. Professional competency is a dynamic concept. You write an exam, you become an officer, that is not professional competency. It's not just that. It is something which is much more constant in nature. All right? You need much more regular in nature. So you need to have that regular awareness and exercise to improve your professional competency in your life. All right? That is the way you can talk about or conclude in your answer. And to ensure this professional competency is encouraged, we are coming up with various programs. The government is coming up with various programs. It is training the officers, right? You can talk about Mission Karma Yogi as well over here. Okay? Right. What is the practice question for today? Without commonly shared and widely entrenched moral values and obligations, neither the law, nor democratic government, nor even the market economy will function properly. What do you understand by this statement? Explain with illustration in the contemporary times. Illustration, you need to talk about the examples, keeping in mind what is happening in the present times. What they're saying basically is, it's a bit long, but what is the meaning? Moral values. Without a proper entrenched moral values in your public and in your private life, if you don't have that, whatever laws you make, no matter how ethical and moral they are, no matter how ethical or moral the democratic government is, whatever goals and objectives we have, we will not be able to overcome it. We will not be able to achieve it. That is the thing. What is this question? Where is this question from? Which syllabus topic does it talk about? Ethics in private and public relationship. Something which we have discussed today. Please do write an answer. And I just want to appreciate few students who got in touch with me, who showed me their answers, who told me how they are preparing. Some of them are working as well as preparing. I was very overcome by that situation. I felt happy. I hope all of you see success in your life. Thank you for your time.